Responsible AI governance, moving from principles to practice. We are pleased to have Ms. Emma Philbick, Chief Economist and Director of Sector Development at Samina Council, as our moderator to take on and lead the intensive session from here.
Mic is live? Yeah, okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session, Designing Responsible AI Governance, Moving from Principles to Practice. Before we invite our experts to take a seat, I would like to invite Bokar Bar, the CEO of Samina Telecommunications Council, to come to the stage and give us a scene and context. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, artificial intelligence is the subject of the day. It touches every country, every sector, and every community. And it is only through the way we govern it that it will become a tool of inclusion or a source of division. And across the world, the governance of artificial intelligence is moving quickly, shifting from aspiration to implementation. What only a few years ago felt like a distant debate is today taking shape in concrete frameworks and enforceable models. We see this evolution clearly in the European Union AI Act, anchoring a risk-based approach with enforceable rules, in the OECD's AI principle, serving as a compass for interoperability across diverse systems, in the African Union's continental strategy, linking policy to capacity development, and international strategies such as in Saudi Arabia, which combine skills, infrastructure, and ethics in one integrated vision. Despite those differences, these approaches share a common thread. We are converging around the same pillar, which are transparency, accountability, careful risk assessment, and human-centric design. And increasingly, all these principles are being put into practice through standards and credible assurance schemes. Today, our focus is on some of the most pressing, urgent questions about AI governance. How do we design risk tiering that keep pace with fast-moving model cycles? How do we embed copyright and privacy safeguards that are both auditable and enforceable? How can we create credible assurance pathway, perhaps even green lanes, that reduce duplication and regulatory friction? And how, finally, do we build inclusion and capacity so that AI serve not only as a tool, but advance economies and the broader development goals of our societies and everywhere? We must not overlook the supporting dimension either. For instance, energy transparency in AI system, which ties innovation directly to sustainability. Therefore, building on the momentum few months back of the AI for Good Global Summit in Geneva, three imperatives now stands out. The first one, and we will address it today, anchored in interoperability. Second one, authenticity and provenance of the data to counter the rise of deceptive and harmful media. Scaled skills and approach and capacity so that the governance is practical, feasible for every country, not just for a few. These imperatives echoes, we are in Riyadh, the GSR 25 Best Practices Guideline, which call on regulators to serve as ecosystem builders. That was the consultation. They also align with the work of the UN High-Level Advisory Board on AI and the aspiration of the Global Digital Compact adopted last year in September at the UNGA. With that context, I'd like to pause there, and it's my pleasure and to hand over to Imme, who will guide us in today's discussion. Thank you for your attention.
Oops. Can I please ask our panelists to come to the stage, and let me just make a few last-minute announcements on speakers present. Unfortunately, Tariq Al-Amri from Mobile was unable to attend the session today. We do have Ahmed Binder from the from the DCO, who will be joining us on the panel, and I will introduce him properly once we are on stage. We also had a very last-minute cancellation of Turkey Al-Murashaika from STC, who was unable to attend because he had a conflicting event. So please come to the stage. Let's have Cosmas Zavazava, please, to my left. We will then continue with Ahmed Binder, please, on second position. Petros Galidis, please, on fourth. We have Kofi Fabrice Jusu, please, next to Petros. I'm then happy to welcome Danny Toby. Cosmas, if you could come just here. Perfect. Yes. And we have, of course, Mr. Karami from Salam, who will be seated all the way at the end. So thank you, Boka, for so aptly setting the stage for us. We will keep this practical today and interoperable, consistent with the outcomes of the AI for Good Global Summit and the emphasis it placed on governance, standard, and skills, and with the GSR best practice guidelines, which were just approved on Monday here in Riyadh, and the guidance it provides on regulatory technology, for example, and on supervisory technology, but also sandboxes and cross-border coordination. So the panel today will be structured in two concise rounds. First, we explore what good looks like in each lane, and then, second, how we prove it works through assurance and contracts, authenticity, provenance, and capacity, and then followed by a brief one-line message to conclude the session. So we have a very impressive lineup today here of experts, and I'm particularly grateful to have Dr. Cosmas Zavazava among us, the director of the BDT, who was able to give us a whole hour of his time, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because it's a very, very busy schedule here at GSR this year. So secondly, a warm welcome to Mr. Ahmed Binder, who is from the Digital Cooperation Council organization, who will provide us with his view on multilateral frameworks and practical toolkits that bridge principles and implementation across its member states. Next, I will introduce Mr. Petros Galidis, the Deputy Commissioner of Communications of Cyprus and the EMARC Chair, and he will share with us the perspectives of the EU AI Act, but also the linkages with cybersecurity. Next, I would like to welcome Kofi Jusu, expert principal of the West African Development Bank, who will share his insights with us on aligning the African Union strategy with bankable and national roadmaps and sustainable development goals linked finance. We then have Danny Toby, who's the global co-chair and chair of DLA Piper America AI and Data Practice, and he will enlighten us in relation to lifecycle governance, legal red teaming, and cross-border assurance. And finally, I'm excited to give a warm welcome to Mr. Abdullah Muhammad Karami, who's the Chief Business Officer at Etihad Salam Company, who will provide us with the operator perspective and RegTech for supervision and accountability. So turning now to our first question, starting with Dr. Zavazava. AI for Good Global Summit highlighted that standards, skills, and capacity and inclusion are the backbone of trustworthy AI that scales across borders. So as we are, and the world is grappling with AI governance challenges with implications beyond national borders, and given ITU's mission to connect everyone, how can AI governance frameworks be designed to ensure that no one is left behind? And what should be the considerations in designing the frameworks, and whose responsibility should it be? Over to you.
Yeah. So it is the same issue discussed and considered at a different time or at different times. Digital divide remains the major question of our time. The challenges of inclusion, bridging the gap between the urban and the rural, between the old and the young, between women and men, has always been under discussion. In the toolbox, we have different tools. AI is one of our latest offerings. It is important for us to make sure that governance across regions, across countries, is in place. From an ethical point of view, regulatory point of view, policy, legal frameworks, because of the cross-border nature and also the level and diversity of the membership. We have the least developed countries, 46 of them spread across all the regions. We also have landlocked developing countries. We have small island developing states with their own unique needs and differentiation. What we have to do is to make sure that we put mechanisms in place so that no one is left behind, whether they are indigenous people, people with disabilities, anyone living must be touched by the work that we do. And artificial intelligence should be there as the tool of choice, end of the day.
Thank you so much for grounding us in, with your view on inclusive design and shared standards and the practicality of it, especially for countries that are emerging and developing. So now from the UN's systems development lens, let us add the multilateral cooperative layer, focused on practical toolkits and regional uptake. So many member states need help turning principles into repeatable practice. And so how can multilateral frameworks like those developed by the DCO help member states move from high-level ethical AI principles and to practical implementation, especially in diverse regulatory environments? How is that possible? How can you bridge that fragmentation?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, Digital Cooperation Organization, the organization that I represent, is an intergovernmental organization. We have 16 member states from the region, from Africa, from EU, from South Asia. And our goal is to enable cooperation on the digital economy across the DCO member states. I am the Digital Policy and Intelligence Director there. To answer your question, we can go on for the whole day about the diversity of regulatory approaches and the governance approaches and how we can bridge the gaps. But to keep it precise, we know that AI is advancing at a speed, at an unprecedented speed, and the governments are under pressure to respond. So countries today already have, some countries have comprehensive AI frameworks, while others are just at the beginning. We also see very diverse governance approaches. On one hand, from some soft voluntary models that support innovation and investment, to the others that adopt prescriptive regulations with strict enforcement for consumer protection and safety rights. So both these approaches are underpinned by the similar core principles of fairness, transparency, accountability, and respect for human rights. So at DCO, we decided to use these principles or to unify our member states with a core set of principles and then provide them with certain tools while not forcing their hands to adopt a certain regulatory approach, but to equip them with the practical tools that could bring these frameworks into practice. We know So first of all, we focused on the similarities of the different governance approaches. And the similarities, we know most countries have national AI strategies. They are setting up the agencies. They are prioritizing AI safety and trustworthiness. They are aligning their national efforts. While also examining the differences, we don't have a common definition of how AI is defined globally. So while some organizations focus on the functional-based definitions, the other organizations and countries work on how AI affects the society, how it could be used for the global good, etc. Then we have sector-specific versus non-sector. Then we have the voluntary guidance and binding regulations. So we at DCO, we provide a shared ethical basics on human rights, and then we lead the member states onto practical instruments that we can implement to drive those principles. So we have developed DCO ethical principles, DCO principles for ethical AI. We got them adopted by the General Assembly, which is the council, which is our governing body, the Council of Ministers. And then we went out to develop tools. One tool, which I will speak later about, it's the DCO Real Toolkit that enables assessment on adoption of the AI and the potential for the governments on how to embark on this journey. And the other one is the DCO Ethics Evaluator, which supports the entities to assess the human rights and ethical risks that might be associated to the development of AI systems. So by developing these frameworks, the member states can maintain interoperability in the AI governance, because the AI governance cannot stop at national borders. We have to all work together to provide all the countries with practically and globally coherent tools to operationalize these principles. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights and for sharing your the way that DCO builds and helps interoperable frameworks to flourish and translates values into actionable steps for very different regulatory contexts. So with that multilateral bridge in place, let us examine now the statutory model that is shaping to some degree global practice, which is the European Union AI Act. And so many jurisdictions will interface with the EU approach, and clarity on first priorities is essential there. So, Petros, what's the general approach and philosophy of the EU AI Act, and what makes this approach so distinctive? Over to you.
Thank you, Imam. Let me first start by thanking the organizers, Samina, dear Bogar, the ITU for this excellent event, and the CST for having us in this, as I said before, very warm country, but with an even warmer welcome. So thank you very much for that. Now, the EU, to ensure that AI is safe, human-centric, and trustworthy, has adopted a risk-based approach in regulating AI. So it has broken the risk in categories and regulates them in a different way. So systems of minimal or limited risk, like chatbots or spam filters, are subject to very light requirements or no regulation at all. High-risk systems in areas like healthcare, critical infrastructure, law enforcement are permitted only under strict obligations. And unacceptable risk practices like social scoring or harmful biometric surveillance, they are completely banned. Now, how will this framework be governed? At the European level, at the European Commission level, there will be an AI office and expert advisory bodies to steer the implementation. Whereas at national level, there will mainly be two types of competent authorities. Market surveillance authorities, which will do exactly that, market surveillance as we all understand it, and the notifying authorities. What this will do is they will notify the Commission who the conformity assessment bodies will be. And these conformity assessment bodies will assess and approve high-risk systems before they enter the market. And the European Commission, at the Commission level, will keep a register of these conformity assessment bodies, as well as of the approved high-risk systems. So they will all be registered. This framework will ensure that high-risk systems are assessed before they enter the market and monitored throughout their life cycle. In practice now, getting more into practice and the implementation, the Act has introduced a phased timeline to give all actors time to adapt. So prohibitions for unacceptable risk practices apply already since February 2025. Governance rules and obligations for general purpose AI models apply since a few days ago, last month, August 2025. The full framework becomes applicable by August 2026, with some sectoral obligations extended to 2027. So in closing, let me just say that although this is a very good framework, AI governance cannot work in isolation, because naturally, no one, no authority, no nation has had any experience, of course, regulating it or can regulate it alone. So cross-sectoral, regional, and global collaboration is vital. Just like digital security, where not even the most advanced or the most powerful nations can do it alone, a similar situation holds with AI. So a very good, one of the best ways perhaps to ensure this collaboration, like we did in Cyprus, our authority is the competent authority for both digital security and AI regulation.
Thank you so much, Petros, for explaining a little bit how the EU is approaching this issue. And for laying out the principles to us. And of course, we will hear a little bit more later in the second round about how the implementation works. But let us now move from the statute to development finance and the African Union's continental strategy. So the GSR 25 guidance emphasizes regional coordination and investment models, and development banks link capital to measurable outcomes. And from both vantage point, how should the African Union continental AI strategy translate into bankable national roadmaps across Western Africa? And where are today's alignment gaps? Which two instruments, such as regional sandboxes or common assurances, etc., would you prioritize in the near term, 12 to 18 months approximately? Over to you, Kofi.
Thank you very much for the question. The topic of the panel is designing responsible AI governance, moving from principle to practice, which means that we are all convinced that AI applications are promoting new ways to leapfrog infrastructure gaps and to solve pressing development issues, specifically when it comes to critical sectors such as healthcare, education, and so many of them. So definitely we are all convinced that there is no doubt that the AI have a potential to impact socioeconomic lives and many things in our continent. But there are few conditions. What is the continent readiness? The status of the continent readiness. Africa is a very diverse continent, and many countries have already a mature AI ecosystem to adopt the technology. And then indeed moving for investment. Others are completely left behind, specifically in the landlocked regions such as the West African region. That's the first. Secondly, how do we mitigate effectively risk? Because before you invest, you need to understand the risk aspect. How do you address the risk? And thirdly, we need to assure that all the investments in AI are harnessed in a way that benefits to vulnerable populations and then in a sustainable way. So when you come back to the African Union AI strategy, it's a strong framework that is critical for fostering innovation and trust in the Africa growing AI ecosystem. But then, as an investor or a development bank, the more important thing is how do you move policy priorities into concrete actions, such as sourcing bankable, as you said, or development projects. The previous speaker spoke about collaboration. I may move to partnership, more footing and strong partnership, in order then definitely to invest, to look at bankable projects, and then actually, as I said, promote innovation by creating innovative instruments that can significantly accelerate sustainable development goals. Yeah.
Thank you, Kofi. So this has shown us a little bit where Africa stands and how we can translate the African strategy also into developing finance and how that should evolve. Moving now from the governance aspect a little bit more to execution. I would like to invite Danny Toby from DLA Piper to enlighten us a little bit. So the UN advisory work and AI for Good Global Summit both stress testable assurance, and regulators and buyers increasingly ask to see the evidence. So for a multinational launching a high-risk generative AI use case, for example, what does a production-ready governance stack look like, and which auditable artifacts must be in place on day one and how do you make them travel across jurisdictions? Do you have some insights on that to share for us? Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Amia. I will do my best. It's, I think, the question of the day. I think it's a billion or trillion dollar question, and more importantly, it's a question of human safety and well-being. As you indicated, my job is to help companies and innovators take these global principles, regulations, laws, and translate them into practices within an organization. I see the good, the bad, and the ugly of efforts to govern this very fast-moving field. I think there was a comment earlier that I couldn't agree more with, that we still don't have a global agreed definition of artificial intelligence, and yet we're trying to regulate it. Usually it's good to be able to agree on a definition of the thing you're trying to regulate. So the first conversation we tend to have internally at a multinational organization is, what do we mean by artificial intelligence? What is in the bucket that needs to be regulated? What is outside? I think the EU, following OECD, did as well a job as anyone could at putting a functional definition in place. But I can share from hard experience, when you get down into the weeds and you say, which of our 10,000 applications need to be subject to this regime or not, it's a very difficult inventory and definition process, and yet it guides everything else. I'll share two thoughts. So we could talk all day about this, but two thoughts that I think will really guide the development of safe and effective AI. One is developing standards, not so much about how to test, but an agreement on what good looks like. I get this question from clients all the time. Okay, we'll put a testing apparatus in place. We know that for higher risk models, we need to test at the design stage and the development stage and the deployment stage. And then we even need a testing plan for decommissioning, because if you're gonna remove a tool that people are dependent on or replace it, you need to know if you are providing parity of service and quality. But what are the metrics? Is it 5 nines, 99.999% accuracy? Is 80% accuracy good enough? Does it just need to be better than the human alternative? There is no simple answer to that question. So corporations and innovators around the world are saying, we're happy to test, but tell us what the benchmark is. So I think we'll see a lot of work in that space to really elucidate what is good enough, what is safe enough. I think the other thing I would say, and I think we'll talk about this more later, is who do we trust to test this? I worry about an opportunistic industry of testers, and I think we'll go into this later, but who's going to test the testers? It will not do us good to have a cottage industry of people who provide box-checking exercises. These are deeply substantive questions that can lead to human harm if we're not successful. So I really want to see independent, valid, scientifically backed testing that has trust among all the various stakeholders. Just a couple thoughts on where we go from here.
Thank you so much, Toby. I think Danny. I think we are really at a stage where all these questions are still so open, and it seems so complex that we are a little bit overwhelmed. But we have to find that path that is a little bit more clearer. So let's hope we can find some questions. And of course, the AI Summit for Good in Geneva in the summer also was raising precisely these issues. Anyway, let us now move to a telecommunications provider, to Abdullah Karami, who's the Chief Business Officer of Salam, and hear the industry perspective and see what operators are actually doing in terms of ensuring that networks are safe, etc. So telecom operators and service providers sit uniquely at both the infrastructure layer and often the service layer. That dual role makes them enablers of others' AI ecosystems as well. So, Abdullah, in your view, what role should telecom operators and service providers play in shaping and implementing AI governance frameworks within the industry? Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First, I would like to welcome the great panelists and great minds here to Saudi with a warm weather and warm hearts.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Abu Bakr for his great introduction as well. So would like to welcome you all. Now, talking about telcos, operator, and service providers, yes, we sit in a very unique position because we control the infrastructure layer, talking about connectivity, network, data, and also to some level, we also control the service layer. Now, talking about customer platforms, digital services, and enterprise solutions. Now, this, as you said, dual role is not only for telcos to play as a user for AI, but also enabler for AI ecosystems for other companies. Now, I've been thinking with a couple of people from the industry what kind of roles that telcos should play. There is a few that I want to talk about. The first one maybe data privacy and security. With the amount of massive data transferred through the network, not only normal data, you're talking about very sensitive data such as locations, communication and financial transactions. Telcos must act as a trust stewards, building the golden rules and principles for data privacy, embedding privacy as built in the application. This is number one. Number two, building an AI trustworthy infrastructure. Imagine if you are the user, whether you are a business user or a normal consumer user, and you feel there is fairness, there is transparency, there is knowledge on how the AI-driven operation is explained So this will drive you to trust the network and adapt more. Number 3, I'm talking about the policy shaping. Again, telecommunication company sits in the middle of the ecosystem, meaning we are talking to regulators, we are talking to enterprises, customers, to consumer, and to technology providers. So we are in this unique position where you actually have a full understanding of how different businesses are being done, so you will be able to shape the policies for them. Now, the fourth thing is we want also to have an enablement for adaptation from B2C and B2B. How can we do that? I believe personally, telcos can promote utilization and adaptation by sharing transparency, compliance, making sure customer service is adapted in a very well way. So this will drive it through also education system behind it to the consumer and businesses. The last point I want to share here as an important and maybe the most important role for telcos, we must lead by example, meaning we need to implement the internal AI governance internally, we need to use it, we need to work on it, and then we need to build the ethical culture behind it as well. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Abdallah, for explaining a little bit why operators are not only sophisticated users, but also stewards of trustworthy infrastructure and convenience of policy alignment, and also custodians, really, of responsible practices in both the enterprise and consumer services. So thank you for the round one on what the good looks like, and we are now going to turn to how we prove it works through assurance, contracts, authenticity, provenance, and capacity in our round two. So let me turn back to Dr. Zava. So AI for Good puts standards, coordination, and authenticity provenance front and center, and now embodied in the AI standards exchange, for example, and related resources. So what mechanisms can ensure interoperability and harmonization of AI governance across borders to facilitate seamless digital services, and which ITU contributions are most useful right now? Over to you, Cosmos.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it is important to recognize the role that our Standardization Bureau plays in harmonizing practices through standards. And up to now, we have over 400 standards that have been produced on artificial intelligence, which is very important for us. In the BDT, we have a platform on regulation where you can now find, in fact, in the coming days, you will be finding a framework for collaborative regulation on artificial intelligence, which is very important. Capacity building is institutionally important because we equip people with the right skills to respond to a particular technology like artificial intelligence and answer the questions. What is it? For whom? How can we maximize or optimize the deployment of artificial intelligence? When we launched together with the CST in 2023, the Digital Regulation Network, it had precisely this purpose. It is the sub-regional level to be able to harmonize practices so that cross-border understanding exists in terms of policy, regulation, and legal frameworks, which is very important. But globally, to share ideas as to how we are innovating, being flexible, and light on our feet. So it is critical to have an understanding. It is important for us to embed. I referred to the categories of countries that we have, particularly least developed countries, the small island developing states. Why? Because we face a threat that we may be creating another phase of digital divide, because the foundation of artificial intelligence is data. And if there is no connectivity, then we don't have the data, and others will be producing artificial intelligence platforms and models that are biased, and that is a threat. Cybersecurity is critical to make sure that everybody has the confidence to go online and do what they want to do and live a normal life, knowing that they are safe. And the data protection in that case is very important. Child online protection is critical. I think harmonization in terms of practices is very important, equipping people with the right skills for them to use and leverage artificial intelligence is of paramount importance. And we are doing our best through our study groups to get ideas from everyone who cares to speak. And then we will be sharing those practices across the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cosmas, for sharing with us what ITU is doing on in that area and what resources are available, in particular, to avoid that we will create another digital divide from this outset where we are now. So moving on to Ahmed Binder from the DCO, member states need actionable instruments, as you've already highlighted a little bit in your first response, to implement ethical AI. So what role do tools such as the DCO AI Ethics Evaluator and the AI Readiness Toolkit play in equipping policymakers and organizations to operationalize responsible AI governance? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, as we have discussed, that the principles are the foundation of responsible AI, but the real challenge is turning these principles into practice. And the question that is posed towards the policymaker is that how do we move forward from these broad values of fairness and accountability and human rights into concrete actions? This is exactly what DCO has been focusing its efforts on, at least during the last 1 year, by developing two complementary tools. First one is called AI Real, which stands for AI Readiness, Empowerment, Adoption and Leadership. A toolkit that is available for our member states, and the other tool is called AI Ethics Evaluator. So the AI Real toolkit, it's a practical framework that is designed for the member states, policymakers and organizations. And it basically provides a diagnostic assessment that helps countries and sectors identify strengths, gaps, and opportunities in AI adoption, keeping in mind that they are at very diversified or very diverse range of AI readiness. And importantly, to the point that, who's going to test the testers, these tools are for testing themselves, for the governments or for the entities to test themselves. So they can know what exactly they want to take it forward. The first tool, it's a self-assessment tool that provides evidence-based decision-making ability to the member states through measurable indicators across 7 pillars of AI adoption and readiness. And it empowers the member states to adopt AI responsibly, strengthen their competitiveness, and foster safe and inclusive transformation. The second tool, very briefly, it's a web-based tool. It's called DCO AI Ethics Evaluator. It's available on the DCO website. And this works at a system level. It enables the developers and deployers of AI system to assess the ethical risks that their systems might be posing across different dimensions. And it gives not only a risk assessment across different pillars around the DCO AI principles, but it also provides them with very comprehensive recommendations on how to improve the systems across different dimensions on these ethical standards. So both these tools together provide or help translate the principles that are widely adopted into actionable guidance, not by forcing hands for the countries to adopt a certain regulatory approach or not. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. This clarifies a little bit more, the role of DCO in putting principles into practice. Thank you very much, and helping countries be able to use self-assessment tools and understand where they are. So with these multilateral tools in view, let us connect back to the statutory oversight and security. Petros, authorities increasingly connect AI governance with cybersecurity to build durable trust. I mean, they're inextricably linked, I would say. We've heard that yesterday also on the trust panel, but also it was alluded to in the consumer protection panel in the plenary yesterday. So given your authorities' dual role and your emphasis on cross-sector and global collaboration, for both AI governance and cybersecurity, how do these work together to build trust in AI, robustness, incident response, and supply chain assurance? Over to you, Petros.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, these two areas, cybersecurity and AI, are very closely linked in building trust in AI. AI systems like other digital technologies are vulnerable, of course, to cyber threats that can compromise their functionality, the privacy, and safety. So integrating cybersecurity considerations into AI oversight ensures that AI systems are not only compliant with the AI Act, but also robust and resilient. Of course, AI in the hands of malicious players pose a much increased threat because they can launch more sophisticated attacks, social engineering, etc. But they are also a strong tool in the hands of authorities. So AI can strengthen cybersecurity, for example, through early detection of intrusions, rapid incident response. So having both responsibilities under the same authority, on the one hand, allows seamless coordination and unified strategies and streamlines decision-making so that the strategies can bridge AI and cybersecurity. On the other hand, when AI and cybersecurity authorities are separate, as we said before, close cooperation is essential. So sharing expertise, policy approaches across authorities ensures that AI is deployed securely, public trust is maintained, and fundamental rights are safeguarded. National cross-sectoral collaboration in between authorities, ministries of the government, etc., research institutions, the academia, and of course the private sector stakeholders further strengthens this approach, aligning sector-specific practices and mitigating risks. At the international level, organizations, again, such as EMERC that I represent, ARECnet, Regulatel that is in the room, and Samina, they can provide platforms for regulators and other parties to coordinate topics such as AI and cybersecurity strategies. While the ITU, as mentioned by dear Cosmas, supports global cooperation, of course, standards development, technical guidance, and capacity building. So engaging with both national and international partners enables a holistic, multi-level approach that strengthens trust, protects fundamental rights, and fosters innovation responsibly. By combining national, cross-sectoral, and international collaboration, we can advance responsible AI governance while embedding security at the core of AI deployment.
Thank you so much, Petros. And exactly, it's important. Also mentioned yesterday in the trust panel, security by design is absolutely crucial at that stage, and lifecycle incidents readiness. They're inseparable, really, from credible AI oversight and regional policy coherence. So let's move on to the development finance perspective. So the Global Digital Compact and the UN advisory process emphasize inclusion and financing, and development banks are pivotal in this. So how will BOAD couple AI investments to measurable SDG gains in agriculture, health, and public finance? And which key performance indicators and guardrails belong in financing terms?
Thank you very much. First of all, as a bank, before an investment impacts definitely on SDG goals, there are at least many points to look at. And Dr. Cosmas Zavazava has actually raised a few valid points. And when I come back to the African context, definitely before we invest, we need to look at the environment. African continent is still experiencing unreliable power issue. Limited internet connectivity. Dr. Cosma Zavazava raised on the importance of skill, talent. Indeed, within the continent, we're still experiencing a shortage of AI skill talent, and above all, high-quality data, which is extremely important. So, when we benchmark other regions and we come back to Africa, look at how AI-specific investment can be coupled to the impact on SDGs, it's extremely important to note that every investment should be properly packed, optimized to prioritize investment that enhance data accessibility, improve decision-making process, which is extremely important, ensuring that all those investments should be aligned with SDG objectives, and then indeed promoting sustainable growth. So one of the key indicators we've seen in other regions are the venture capitals. Venture capitals investment, you link it to renewable energy generation. So for the interest of time, that's all I can say for now.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's great. Let's turn to Danny, who tests the testers, which you've already alluded to earlier. So it has become a central question, and it was very, very big during AI for Good Global Summit. The international conversation points to light global mechanisms and common standards, but what should be what should meta assurance look like? And if we created an independent voluntary global trust mark for higher risk AI, what architecture would you back? And how should procurement or mutually recognized green lanes treated?
Yes.
Over to you.
So thank you for the question, and just to reiterate, what an amazing panel it is to be a part of, and all these distinguished thinkers. So thank you for that. I like the idea personally of voluntary independent testing, but that's a personal view. You know, there will certainly be, especially in certain sectors, I think a need for government testing. You know, I think in healthcare and other higher risk areas, there may be higher standards applied for the types of evidence generation to assure that the data being presented as safety data or effectiveness data is reliable. I think we have great models for that type of sector-based evidence through EMA, FDA, the African Medicines Association, all around. There are great models for that sort of highly specialized testing. But I don't want to lose sight of the more general purpose tools. So the chatbots we talked about earlier, I think as time goes on and we understand these tools better, some things that at first seemed lower risk, like chatbots, are actually turning out to be highly impactful. Even looking to the United States, there's been very recently a lot of enforcement activity by government agencies on mental health and chatbots, suicidality. And then I think with the advent of agentic AI, where chatbots can now go from prompt to action in the real world, there are new areas of risk coming up. So I think as we deploy even maybe some of the more benign or seemingly benign tools, we will need real assurance to say, can we rely on the information that comes out of it? Do we believe that it's safe? Do we believe that it's trustworthy? Do we believe that it is not subliminally manipulating or some of these other prohibited practices that Petros very, very eloquently summarized for us? So, you know, companies will certainly take it upon themselves to do some of that self-testing, but I think the ability to have voluntary external assurance, just like we might with ESG or other areas, could be an additional level of a seal of good housekeeping. And I do think we will want to hold those auditors to account, that they're not just rubber stamping, but they're standing behind their insurance.
Okay, I think that would be really important. And just as you've just mentioned, for example, ChatGPT is being sued at the moment, or OpenAI, for a suicide that has happened, or several actually, because a child had consulted with ChatGPT chatbot. And even though in the EU, for example, chatbots are not high risk, right? There seems to be a risk, so it seems to be an evolving category as well, right? So it's very difficult to, of course, have fixed categories and saying this is, has to be more open.
And not limited to any particular provider or company. This is just inherent in the technology itself. Anything that has intelligence can interact in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, thank you for those insights, and let's get to Abdallah. So, as AI governance matures in telecoms, it helps to unpack components and implementation and market impact. So, AI governance is a relatively new concept in the telecommunications industry, and could you elaborate on these key components, on the implementation ideas and the potential business impacts it may have on the market landscape? Over to you. Thank you.
Let me just break it down to three. So you ask about what are the major components of AI governance in telecommunication, what are some of the implementation ideas of this, and then what is the business impact. I just want to touch base on some of the key components. I believe that it should be, for example, the ethical frameworks. It could be derivative from the global frameworks, or could be built to complement based on customer rights, fairness, and inclusivity. Another component, and a very important component when it comes to data governance. There should be very strict rules, extremely strict rules when it comes to making sure the data is secured within the AI era. Another point we talked about is transparency and explainability. People would like to know why this decision has been made. What are the logic behind it? So there should be dashboards or tools to help organization to understand why this is happening. From also a components point of view, I just want to touch base on 2 points. Accountability structure, Mr. Abu Bakr talked about it, and maybe Ahmed. There should be a clear ownership. Who's owning what, who's approving what, and when, because tomorrow this could be very complicated if there is no clear accountability. Lastly, from an important components point of view, continuous monitoring and auditing. There should be a clear path towards that. Now, moving on from an implementation ideas, I also talked to a couple of people, how can we make this happen? What tools and ideas should we do? So one great idea was to have an AI governance board on a company's level, cross-functional teams, on a verticals level, industry level, and on a country's level. And all these should be linked to policies and guidelines coming from the global standards. Now, also, one of the ideas of implementation is building ethical AI playbook for designers, students, teachers, users, where they can go back to, and there we have a standard of the ethical playbook they can go to. Third-party vetting. We are not alone in this. Regulators are not alone. Technology vendors are not alone. Implementation teams are not alone. So there should be a policy or a way to bring these third-party vetting solution into our decision, just to make sure once we make a decision, it's inclusive for a lot of people. Now, this is taking me to the potential business impact. If you are a personal user, or if you are a company and you started using AI, you definitely have a competitive edge today. This goes without saying. So if you do a regulation behind it, then this will take you to a faster regularity approvals. And this will definitely improve your customer retention and trust. And I want to finish by saying, we as telcos or companies, we should be part of the market shaping. So if you want to be a market leader and market shaping, this is the right time to go in and say your opinion and share your experience in how to shape this AI era. And last, business impact. Maybe it's important for business users. It is definitely a new revenue stream. 100%, whether it's internally from a cost saving or of efficiency, or externally if you are selling services or product. Again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this great panelist, and I hope the information was good for everyone.
Thank you so much, Abdullah. I think it was very insightful what you just shared, especially the breakdown as well, and how we should organize from the top global level down country to the business and also the consumer level. This is really a big issue for implementation. How can we translate high-level policies into lower-level tools and business as well, right? So that really concludes our panel, but I would really like to hear just one sentence from each, how you would like to leave the audience, with what message you would like to leave the audience. So let's start by Dr. Zavazava.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iman. I want to thank, first and foremost, Mr. Bukaba and Samena. We have been a great partner with us. We've been working with them on innovation and entrepreneurship, and also trying to attract and bring to the table industry and the private sector. This challenge and opportunity is for us all to embrace. So artificial intelligence brings more good than bad. Let's work on it. It's a multi-stakeholder approach, multi-sectoral approach, multidisciplinary approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Cosmas. Over to you, Ahmed.
Well, thank you very much. It was a very enriching discussion, and thank you very much for listening to me. So if AI is global, the governance must also be global. And the responsible AI governance principles must move to some actions. We need to work across sectors and nations to jointly turn our agreed principles into practice that serves the humanity. And by the way, to Abdullah, we have a couple of guidebooks on ethical AI available that could be referred to. Thank you.
Over to you, Petros.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you, Samina, again, for bringing us together. The EUI Act, and as you said, its implementation in practice is a landmark step forward from broad ethical issues to concrete risk-based governance of AI, while cross-sectoral and cross-border cooperation and regulatory alignment will ensure effective AI governance, security, and trust, as well as protection of fundamental rights and responsible fostering of innovation.
Thank you. Over to you, Kofi.
My word will be a call for action. Action for collaboration, so to transform policy priorities, as I said, into concrete action, stimulate investment, and promote innovation. So no one can achieve that vision alone. It has to come through multi-stakeholder approach, respecting every single stakeholder's mandate and sector. I thank you.
Thank you, Kofi. Danny?
Thank you for having us. And AI safety will not have a simple solution. Every level of the value chain has a contribution to make towards AI safety and effectiveness.
Thanks. And Ahmed? Abdullah, pardon.
I just want to say I'm a very proud Saudi and Gulf citizens today to see such improvement from an AI perspective coming to the region. We are proud to be leaders today in this era, and we want to continue bringing the right minds, the right setup, and the right technology partners into the region. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you all for this amazing panel. It was really rich because we had so many different perspectives, and I think that really brought out how broad the issues are that concern AI, and we had all the different levels represented, which is really exciting in itself to hear all that in one panel. And so we set out to move from principle to practice, and a few themes stood out, as you've just highlighted. First, risk-tiered lifecycle governance needs to be anchored in international standards, we've heard, and capacity and interoperable tools so compliance can travel across borders. Second, inclusion and capacity matter. Skills and shared resources, pooled testing are prerequisites for credible oversight everywhere. Third, assurance must be real. Who tests the testers with accredited evaluation, reproducibility and retesting, and potential trust marks that procurement can recognize. Fourth, protect rights end-to-end, privacy, intellectual property, transparency and authenticity with proportionate energy disclosure, in my view, is important as a supporting dimension. Fifth, infrastructure and operators belong in the loop, no question at all. Reg tech and surveillance tech can make supervision continuous. There are some interesting examples highlighted in the exhibition area by CSD, for example. If you have a chance to look what they're doing, it's quite impressive, actually. And sixth, finance should tie AI to SDG outcomes via bankable roadmaps and KPIs. And finally, inside enterprises, I think, make assurance continuous and risk-adjusted, embedded in delivery and supply chain visibility rather than bolted on later. So it's really the by design concept. And if we keep frameworks interoperable and evidence-based, governance really becomes an enabler of trust and innovation and measurable development impact. So with that, thank you, and I'll let you go. I know we're very late. Thank you.